Every day, people die on the roads. But what if that person was someone you love? How would you feel if you caused the accident? These are the true stories of people whose lives have been ripped apart by one silly mistake. They're people just like you. They too thought it would never happen to them.
It began as an innocent night out with friends. A group of mates decide to head to a party. But what they don't know is it'll prove fatal for one of them and land another in prison. Life after the 24th of June 2004 will never be the same.
I remember very little. I remember leaving the party and then pretty much the next day.
I think it's probably every parent's nightmare is to get a phone call in the middle of the night. I think it was approximately 2:30. The phone rang and Sandy, my wife, answered the phone and called out to me and told me it was the police.
After drinking and smoking cannabis, Stephen was sick of waiting for a taxi and got behind the wheel of a mate's car. The four friends piled in, and this is the result. The Holden Commodore smashed into a power pole with such force it cut the car in two and snapped the pole. One of the boys was killed on impact, another was seriously injured. Stephen has no memory of the accident, but he'll never forget causing the crash that killed his mate.
I just shattered a family. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I was really surprised that it happened to him, especially that he was the driver of this car. You know, I mean, Stephen went to a pretty good school and he was always very, very popular. He was always sort of the leader. He was a football captain of his rugby union football team.
For his father, the nightmare began to unfold when he arrived at the hospital.
Every pieces really started to sink in at the hospital that same night. I mean, we all knew that Stephen had been drinking. I only found out within probably half an hour to an hour of being at the hospital that he was a driver. We also found out just prior to that there was one of the boys had died, was killed in the accident. And on top of that, within a half an hour we found out that they found some sort of pipe with marijuana that Stephen had in his pocket. I think everything sort of collapsed around us because I knew straight away then that things didn't look very good at all.
Stephen was charged with dangerous driving causing death. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced in the district court 8 months after the crash.
A Walkerston man will spend his 21st birthday in jail after pleading guilty to causing a car crash that killed his mate. Stephen Raymond Verlaine was sentenced to 7 years in prison. He'll be eligible for parole after 2 years and 4 months.
In the moments before the crash, he reached speeds of up to 185 kilometres per hour. The Crown prosecutor said Verlaine had told one of the passengers, "This is as fast as your car can go," before he yelled at Verlaine to slow down. Verlaine had a blood alcohol reading of 0.246 and had smoked marijuana earlier that night.
I just knew I'd done the wrong thing and I just faced the consequences. You know, it was hard, really hard, but you can't change it. You can't, just do what you got to do, I suppose.
Stephen is now living each day in a prison cell.
I suppose I took it for granted that something like that had never happened to me.
His days are filled with the same routine and he lives every day knowing he killed a mate.
This is something that will be with him the sorriest mistake he's ever done, and he'll live with it for the rest of his life, unfortunately.
Sadly, Stephen's story isn't unusual. Lives are shattered by these types of accidents every day.
Every day, 5 Australians die on the road and 60 end up seriously ill in an emergency department. One bad decision and a second and everything changes. And some people come into the emergency department really in the last stages of their fight for life, and there's not a lot that we can do.
When an accident happens, it's left to the firefighters to clean up the mess. It's their job to free people from car wrecks, whether they're dead or alive.
It depends. Every accident scene is different. When you turn up on scene, you know, it can be something very simple to something which is just mass carnage. Parts of cars everywhere, body parts, you know, people that are fatally injured, may be ripped out of cars, that sort of thing.
Firefighters now spend more time freeing people from car wrecks than they do dousing flames. They never get used to the carnage and never stop wishing it would end.
Every accident affects every one of us, every time. And we all remember every accident we've been to.
For an undertaker, collecting bodies from crash sites is part of their job.
When you get that first call, you don't know what to expect, you don't know how many people have been killed, you don't know what condition the person is in. I think a lot of things go through your mind. You think of your own family, you think of the poor family who's going to get a knock at the door. Their life is going to change forever.
As a police officer, Jason Robertson has had to deliver the devastating news too many times. Telling someone their son or daughter is dead never gets any easier.
And sometimes people expect the worst and break down, and you haven't even said anything.
That's how Robin Lockman felt when police knocked on her door.
They said there'd been an accident and that Dylan was at the hospital.
17-year-old Dylan Lockman had just graduated from high school and had his whole life ahead of him until one Sunday night when he decided to go driving with friends.
And I said to him, might be a good idea if you stay home tonight, mate. We've got a lot to do tomorrow. But of course, being a 17-year-old, he didn't want to stay home. That was a really bad idea. So off he went.
If only he knew those were the last words he would ever hear his mother say. If only he knew how that night would turn out.
It was just a regular thing for us, just drive around like idiots, playing games, playing hide and go seek at 3 o'clock in the morning with our cars. Like, it was just a regular occurrence. It was just a disaster that night that we had that accident.
Fiona Davidson was behind the wheel that night. In the moments before the crash, she'd been racing another car. She took off down a side street when the unthinkable happened.
I don't remember much. I don't remember how it happened. I just remember swerving off the road and trying to come back on, but going too far, going in the opposite direction and hitting a ditch and rolling it. And, I blacked out for a while. And I just remember everyone screaming. And, we had people lying on the ground. We had 2 people lying on the ground and thought they were both dead. And it was just really, really horrible.
And I think of the accident and what it must have been like for him, although they tell me he wouldn't have felt anything, or they think of your child lying out there in the dark. And those things will never go away.
Dylan suffered massive head and internal injuries. He was put on life support and his family was given the grim news.
And the doctor came and explained what had happened. I can't remember it, but Fraser said, I asked, was Dylan going to die? And the doctor said, we expect so.
For 36 hours, Dylan's family sat by his bedside, wishing for the impossible.
So I thought I'd get to the hospital, Dylan would be there, maybe with a few scratches or something that I wasn't prepared for. What I saw, and I knew there was something wrong even before I saw Dylan.
Dylan wasn't wearing a seatbelt, he was thrown metres from the car. His family had to make the devastating decision to turn off his life support.
Now, I think they're all a little bit responsible, but I think the drivers of the car have to take the majority of the responsibility. They're tearing around with 4 other kids in the car. There's 4 families, there's 5 families that could have lost someone that night.
In the eyes of the law, Fiona was responsible. She was charged with dangerous driving causing death, a crime punishable by imprisonment.
No, I'm 17 years old. I just finished school and told that I'm going to go to jail. That was hard. No. I was supposed to be starting my new life. But everything just stopped for about 2 years. Couldn't move forward.
She pleaded guilty and was jailed for 2 years, suspended after she served just 3 months.
You watch TV shows, but it's nothing like that. And, court's something that happens in America, not something that happens to a 17-year-old kid. I just remember at the actual sentencing, the judge saying, sentenced to jail for 2 years, suspended after 3 months, and I didn't even know what that meant. I thought I was going to jail for 2 years. I had no idea.
I think 3 months was a very short time out of her life. And after that 3 months, she was home with her mum again. Dylan will never be at home with us.
Going to jail for 3 months is nothing compared to what happened to Dylan.
Fiona served her time in prison, but both families and everyone involved in the accident are now living a life sentence.
That's the hardest word to say, I think. Like that he's dead.
Everyone knows a Dylan or a Fiona, or maybe you can relate to Stephen's story. They're all people who never thought it would happen, but as young drivers, the odds were against them. For these young people and many others, it's too late. Their lives have already been ruined forever. But it's not too late to stop it happening to others. When you get behind the wheel of a car, remember, it could be you or someone you love.
Don't stop having fun. It's part of life, it's part of learning, but just take 30 seconds to have a think. If I do this, what's going to happen? What's the chances of something happening? And think about what's going to happen, and if it's not good, don't do it. Just have a think. If you're with someone that's going to do something silly in the car, have the balls to speak up about it and just say, come on mate, let's settle down.
Just don't think it's going to happen to you. You're out just having a good time and all of a sudden your life just turns upside down like that.
And when you've been drinking, don't drive.
Just bite the bullet and just don't get in your car. It's so easy to say, oh, it'll be right. But really it's probably harder not to get in the car because it's there, it's easy, you get home, well, that's what everyone thinks, so that's what I thought, Just have the guts to go to the trouble to not get home the easiest way. If you've got to catch a taxi, if you had a drink, this might be a bit harder, but it's be a hell of a lot safer.
Always remember that your actions will affect others. Imagine the pain your family would suffer if you died in a smash, or if you caused the crash that killed someone. Could you handle living with it for the rest of your life?
Please don't let this be your mum and your family.
I miss him dearly. I enjoy him at home. His smile, Stephen's got a terrific smile and a happy smile. And I miss that, and I just hope that he doesn't lose that when he comes home.
I know if I'm in traffic and an ambulance, comes through, I'll start crying because I just think someone's life could be ruined right in that second.
The difficulty is that no matter what you do, it seems that you can't save everybody from themselves.
That kids die in road accidents all the time. You see it on the news and in the papers. You never ever think it's going to be your child.
When you ask them to choose a coffin for their loved one, that is a really, really hard job.
And the most important thing, never think it won't happen to you.
The mentality of it won't happen to me is the worst thing you can have because the chances are it's going to happen to you. If you push your luck enough, something's going to happen.
Once you get your licence, it just means you can drive. It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to stop your car from flipping or to be able to brake quickly enough, so you just have to remember that.
And, I think it's important that people think about the cost of knowing for the rest of your life that, your bad decision on one day cost the life of your girlfriend or your best friend, and have to cope with that. Maybe drive past the accident scene many times in a week here in Mackay. And, I think that's a scar that will never go away.
It happens to anyone. It doesn't discriminate. It's like I never thought it would happen to us. And it keeps happening to parents. It continually. They're not learning at all. Well, they can't be because they're still dying.
Everybody thinks that they're invincible, and you just don't know until it happens.